A note of warning to viewers of a nervous disposition. Today in the Crown Court, we deal with a crime so fiendish as to strike at the very foundations of life as we know it. Murder most foul.
Members of the jury, the prisoner stands indicted for that he, Robert Aloysius Hammond, on the 25th day of December, did without lawful excuse murder Stanley de Vere Plantagenet Isham. To this indictment he has pleaded not guilty, and it is your charge to say, having heard the evidence, whether he be guilty or not.
Do we understand, then, Mr. Sampson, that you have now retired from the police force?
That I have, sir.
But you were, in December last, the officer assigned to this case.
That I were, sir.
When did you first hear the case?
At exactly 1 o'clock on the afternoon of Christmas Day. I was just sitting down to my Christmas dinner and I received a telephone call from the constable at Little Wretchin. I then proceeded to Wretchin Hall, which be 3/4 of a mile outside Little Wretchin. That's if you take the shortcut across Farmer Jarvis's fields.
You seem to know this village, Little Wretching, very well.
Oh, that I should. I were born there and served as constable till last year.
And when you arrived at Wretching Hall?
One moment, Mr. Harvester. Mr. Sampson, when were you promoted Detective Inspector?
December last, my lord.
From constable at Little Wretching?
Happy so, my lord.
Is murder or any other grave offence a common occurrence in Little Wretching?
Not as you might say common, my lord, no. More riding bicycles without lights, like.
Odd.
My lord?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Harvester. Yes, carry on, please.
When you arrived at Wretching Hall, officer, what did you find?
I found a corpse.
Where?
In the library.
The library?
My lord.
Was it, by any chance, slumped over the desk with a dagger of oriental design stuck in its back?
As a matter of fact, my lord, yes.
Ah.
Were you able to identify the corpse?
It were young Stans.
You mean Sir Stanley Isham?
That's right.
And shortly afterwards, did a police surgeon arrive?
He did.
And do you now produce his medical report?
I do.
My lord, my learned friend has agreed to the production of this report.
Mr. Harvester, I must confess to a certain amount of impatience. What was the cause of death?
He was stabbed, my lord.
And it was not subsequently found that he had died from some obscure oriental poison?
Oh, no, my lord.
Oh, you disappoint me, Mr. Harvester.
My lord?
Well, surely it is the classic procedure in fictional cases of this kind for it to be discovered later that the knife was stuck into the corpse merely to confuse the police, and that the cause of death turned out to be something quite different.
As your lordship pleases. Officer, did you proceed...
No, please, Mr. Harvester.
My lord.
I see that the doctor is unable to determine the exact time of death.
You will recall, my lord, that he was unable to come to the scene of the crime until after lunch on the Christmas day.
Yes, indeed. In fact, all that the good doctor can say is that death could have occurred between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. on Christmas morning.
Yes, my lord. Officer, do you now produce the weapon by which the deceased met his death? Exhibit number 1, my lord?
Ah.
And this would perhaps be an appropriate moment, my lord, to exhibit the bundle of photographs of the deceased and of the scene of the crime. Exhibit number 2.
Mr. Harvester, I congratulate you. You have been briefed in what is indeed a classic case.
I'm obliged to your lordship. Now, officer, did you ascertain to whom that dagger, exhibit number 1, belonged?
I did it with young Stans.
The deceased. How do you know?
It always hung on the wall, you see, in the library. I seen it there many a time.
And were there fingerprints on the dagger?
No, none at all.
Did you find any material evidence at the scene of the crime which could lead you...
The word, Mr. Harvester, is clues.
I'm exceedingly obliged, my lord. Did you find any clues, officer?
No.
Did you interview the residents of the house?
I did.
Who were they?
Well, old Miss Webster, of course, she used to teach me down at the village school. And then there was young Master Nicholas, of course, that's his Sir Nicholas as is now, like. Yeah. And, of course, Standish, the butler.
Ah, the butler.
In what were, my lord. He still lives there at the Hall, sort of pensioned off, as you might say. Oh, and her.
Her?
Ah, her. Her has married young Stan, Lady Isham, that is.
Am I to take it, Mr. Harvester, that all these people were staying in the house, a sort of Yuletide country house weekend?
Oh, no, my lord, they live there.
All of them?
Well, he let it out in flats, see?
The deceased?
No, old Sir Martin, he had the old hall converted into flats.
Yes, but they all seem to be relations or local people.
Well, they would be, see, because there's always been Ishams at the hall. He liked to keep up the old tradition, Sir Martin did.
Now, I think this would be a convenient moment, my lord, to put in exhibit number 3, a plan of the house. Now, as your lordship and the jury will see, it is a large house built on 3 floors. The ground floor has been retained as one very large flat, and then there are 2 self-contained flats on each of the upper floors. Apart from the other flats do not concern us, my lord.
Why do they not concern us?
Because all these people were present during the whole of the material time at a party held by the accused in his flat, my lord. Now, that is the flat immediately above the room where the body was found, the library. Now, officer, having interviewed the other witnesses, did you then interview the accused?
I did.
Did you caution him?
Oh, I did that straight away. I went to his room, and there he were, flaked out across his bed with all his clothes on, sound asleep. And I said, do you wish to say anything? You are not obliged to do so, but whatever you do say will be written down and may be used in evidence. Now, he said...
But I'm sorry, you cannot possibly mean to say that you cautioned this man before you'd had any previous interview with him at all.
So I did, my lord.
So I'm right in thinking that you woke him out of sleep and cautioned him.
That was so, my lord. I cautioned him, and he said, what? And I said, there's murder been done. And he said...
Do you seriously mean to tell this court that this was, so far as you know, the first intimation that the accused had that there had even been a murder?
I caught him red-handed, as you might say, my lord.
You did say that you had retired since then.
That be so, my lord.
Well, I don't know what your learned friend may wish to make of all this, but... I thought as much. God.
Well, I said there's been murder done, and he said, don't be bloody silly, I got hangover, man. And I said, young Stan's been done in. And he said, so it happened. So it really did happen.
It happened, it really did happen.
That's what he said, yes. And I said, 'tis my duty to ask you to accompany me to the station, where whatever you say, and then he interrupted me like he said, all right, I'll come quietly. Then he said something else, my lord, sort of soft like it were, almost to himself.
What did he say?
Yes, he said, it is a far, far better thing I do now than I have ever done.
And then?
He come quietly, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson.
You're welcome.
Officer? But of course, it's no longer officer, is it? You did say you'd retired?
Yes.
When?
What?
When did you retire from the force, Mr. Sampson?
In January, sir.
How old are you?
52.
Oh, has the retiring age been lowered then?
Well, it weren't like that.
Or what then?
I weren't well.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. In what way not well? Did you have some sort of accident?
Not quite, no.
Or some illness then?
Well, no.
What then, Mr. Sampson?
We're more nervous, like.
Nervous?
Kind of breakdown, it were.
And when did this breakdown occur?
Just after New Year, sir.
Mr. Sampson, how many cases did you handle during your very brief term of office as Detective Inspector?
Just the one, sir.
This one? This case?
Yes.
Would you speak up, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And within a week of arresting this man for murder, you suffered your nervous breakdown.
Yes.
Now, is it within your knowledge, Mr. Sampson, that immediately after your retirement, the Detective Sergeant Simpson was promoted to Detective Inspector?
My lord, I don't see that this...
Mr. Dealey, you are, I assume, suggesting that this officer's appointment came about as the result of confusion between 2 similar names and that he was not qualified to undertake this investigation.
I am, my lord.
Or, to put it another way, to suggest that the days of the infallible detectives such as Lord Peter Wimsey have, alas, gone forever.
And not to mention Monsieur Hercule Poirot, my lord.
I submit, my lord.
Continue, Mr. Dealey.
My lord. Well, Mr. Sampson was Detective Sergeant Simpson.
Yes, he was.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to remind the jury of one statement that you state the accused made. You say he said, "It is a far, far better thing I do than I have ever done." Are you familiar with the works of Charles Dickens, Mr. Sampson?
What with your lordship's remarks about certain works of detective fiction, and my learned friend's present excursion into a more classical period, I'm emboldened to ask whether this is a court of law or a class in English literature.
By all means, Mr. Harvesty, ask. Continue, Mr. Dealey.
Mr. Sampson, have you ever read The Tale of Two Cities?
I saw the film.
And then you may remember those very words being spoken by Sidney Carton before going to his death for a crime he did not commit for the sake of the woman he loved.
I don't remember old films all that well.
That's all, Mr. Sampson. Thank you.
Has your lordship any further questions?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Harvesty. Very well. You may leave the box.